Yeah, so thank you, Shad, for previewing what I might talk about. Obviously, at AMD, we're an empirical journal. We're really interested in the phenomenon, and I won't repeat what Drew and Shad said. I completely agree with the context that they talked about. I think it's the sort of things we're starting to see as well. The other thing that I will say on just to push a little bit on the political side. As organizations are going after SDGs, as there's more partnerships between the private sector and the public sector and the government sector around how we're going to tackle sort of global challenges, we've only scratched the surface of this. And I would love to see more empirical work, original data sets, really pushing the envelope on what is actually happening, what are areas of the world, certain partnerships where we're starting to see real change, or not starting to see real change. I actually think part of what we believe passionately about at AMD is that we'll publish null findings if that means something that should be working is not working. I think that can also be a discovery, and we're just sort of scratching the surface. And I think a lot of organizations and governments they're flying blind. They don't necessarily know what's going to work. We don't necessarily know which incentives are going to push, organizations or even individuals within organizations in certain directions. So I think that's quite interesting. Moving a little bit more micro, again, just pushing on the technology side a little bit. I think that everything with regard to automation and robotics and AI is quite fascinating. And if I were to go a little bit into the challenges, if I were to give advice on how to study the future of work, I really think an intensive approach where you're immersing yourself in a context is critical. And whether that's working at a retail establishment that is using some sort of automation, or going to an Amazon warehouse, or embedding in an organization that is developing technologies that might be seen by some as unethical, and talking to those individuals, or partnering with an organization to build a data set that is going to give insight into some of these problems. One of the things that we see at AMD is individuals are going for breadth rather than depth, right? And if you really want to study the future of work, you can't study the future of all work or an entire industry. We have to go after, process by process, behavior by behavior, situation by situation. And I'll give the example of remote work. I've had this conversation many, many times. Everybody wants to study remote work. We've got a number of remote work papers. I'm sure other journals have as well. And typically the paper is something like, everybody is engaging in remote work now. Here are the 5 tensions we found. And none of the tensions are really explored that deeply. And many of the tensions we've known about for 20 years because there's been work on telework and telecommuting and virtual teams and so forth for quite a while. And so what I tell to those authors is, take the one thing we don't know a lot about. Maybe it's about how work is assigned, or how work is attributed, or how teams make certain decisions, and run with that idea, right? That's what is really changing, and that's how you can make your mark on the future of work by really focusing in on that slice, rather than trying to tell the entire story of what might be happening with something like remote work. The last thing that I'll mention as sort of an opportunity is, and this is completely anecdotal, is that I think companies are much more open to research partnerships. I think research is becoming more normative in companies. And now they may not be open to every type of research. Maybe they are happy to have you embedded and do qualitative, but maybe not do surveys, or vice versa. Or they might provide you access if you're willing to provide them some insight. And I would keep pushing and pushing on these companies that are pushing the boundaries if you want insights into the future of work, because as smart or not as we are, we're academics, right? We're not out there, and you have to be on the front line in order to have the best insight into the future of work. Thank you.